A very warm welcome to the art vlog, art lovers. I'm super excited today because it is the first big opening of 2023 at the Royal Academy, and the show is called Spain and the Hispanic World, Treasures from the Hispanic Society Museum and Library. This exhibition is the consequence of a very singular individual American who was born in the 19th century, called Archer M. Huntington. Huntington came to Europe with his family age 11 in 1882 and fell in love with all things Hispanic. Over the next few years and decades, he learned Spanish and Arabic, spent prolonged periods in Spain immersing itself in his culture, and cultivated a dream of opening a museum of Hispanic art in his native New York City. This went on to become the Hispanic Society Museum and Library, based in Upper Manhattan. And Huntington didn't just want to collect Spanish art from a certain period, he was also very much interested in the wider Hispanic world. And so we're talking about Latin America, the Philippines, and he wanted to sort of cover the whole shebang from year dot, if you like, all the way through to his lifetime. And this show is only available in London because the Hispanic Society Museum and Library has shut for a much needed renovation. I've never been to it on my art sojourns to New York, but would love to when it reopens. Anyway, New York's temporary loss is London's temporary gain, and this show is going to promises to deliver some choice highlights from the Hispanic Society Museum and Library, which is a very, very well-known institution, I should say, and is widely believed to contain the most comprehensive collection of Hispanic art outside of Spain itself. So I'm expecting, Velázquez, Goya, El Greco, artists I absolutely love, but I'm also very much hoping for more as well. Pieces that I'm not aware of, and artists that I don't really know about. So, and I suppose is the question I have is this exhibition going to deliver what it's selling on the tin, which is a sort of comprehensive overview of Hispanic art from year zero up until Huntington's lifetime. Now, this show is on until the 10th of April, so it's a spring show, and it's £24.50 to get in, £22 without the donation, which is voluntary. That is expensive. This is the Royal Academy, which is not like a state-run museum, but still, we'll see if it's worth it as well. I'm here on the first Saturday, the opening Saturday, so come and join me as I take you inside at the Royal Academy. Well, I have to say that was a bonkers show. I mean, it was one of the strangest shows I've ever seen, full of beauty and frustration in lots of ways. The key word I would use to sort of encapsulate this show is breadth, both in terms of chronological breadth, but also in terms of the great variety of different objects and artworks, from books to there's a baptismal font, to some gorgeous paintings, to some caskets, to some silk. You know, it just cuts to sculpture, to mosaic. I mean, it's just an incredibly overwhelming show. Now, if we just start with the chronological breadth, it is attempting to cover the whole of Spanish and Hispanic art and artifacts in lots of ways. And in the chronological breadth worked best, undoubtedly, for me in that transition between the first Roman and pre-Roman room and the Islamic room, which is called Al-Andalus. My heart beat faster as you went from one clear ascetic style to the other. That chronological flow broke down for me in the medieval and early modern room. The medieval and early modern was such a pivotal period in Spanish history, and produced such a wide range of art that it just was so vast. And as you can see here, I mean, this room is big. But having said that, I mean, this is where some of my highlights were in this room. Similarly, the three colonial rooms produced some exquisite works, but also missed out, I felt, quite a lot as well. And obviously, you know, these are just 150 of the items that have been chosen from the Hispanic Society Museum and Library. This chronology also broke down a little bit when you go from colonies to Goya. Goya's afforded his own central space, as you can see here, and then on to these two modern Spanish artists, but that's obviously a consequence of the collection itself. So yeah. The richness of the objects themselves are both a huge treat and let down, I think, by a lack of context. An example being the this beautiful Hebrew Bible here, and in the description it mentions that obviously this was produced before the Jews were expelled from Spain in 1492. This was a seismic, cataclysmic, horrific event, and yet you don't really get any sense of that, or lots of other of these events in the exhibition, and that's also true to a lesser extent of the colonial rooms as well. That being said, this is still an incredibly wonderful exhibition. I think that it's trying to do too much. Each of these rooms, in a way, could be a mega show on their own. If you can imagine the RA doing another mega show on Islamic art of Spanish Islamic art, or you could imagine them doing one on Roman, Roman Iberia, or certainly art of colonial Latin America. But there is a place as well for these broader shows. Whereas you don't get the depth, you do get a range, and I did come away having had a sense of the development of Spanish art. I'm not going to apologise for going old school with my two absolute favourites. The first is the portrait of the Duchess of Alba by Goya. I love the mystery of the message on the ring, and the fact that she's pointing to Goya's name on the ground, and the fact that he had this in his studio, and it was obviously an incredibly moving and important work for him, and it's an undoubted masterpiece. There are a few masterpieces in this show, and this was one of them. The second is the portrait of a young girl by Velázquez. This was an intimate portrait, an absolute masterpiece, a classic piece of Velázquez. And if I could take two works home on my wall, unsurprisingly, it would be these two great works, and it was such a pleasure to see them in London. So overall, do I recommend this show? Yeah, I do. Despite my frustrations, I would give it a solid 7 out of 10. I was umming and ahhing between 6.5, which I think is a bit mean, and 7. The reason for that is it is so broad that it leaves gaps in context, but the way I would recommend it is that you go and look at it as a series of exquisite objects from across Hispanic history or Spain and Latin American history. And see it that way, and then you will be able to totally luxuriate in these objects as I did. It's on until the 12th of April, so you've got quite a long time. I would say that the price, although very expensive, £24.50 with a donation, it's you know, it's worth it for what you see. These objects, let's face it, aren't going to come back en masse to London ever again once the refurbishment of the museum in New York has happened. So yeah, do go along if you like what you saw, and do remember to subscribe to the Art Vlog and hit that notification bell for reviews of upcoming shows, loads opening over the next couple of months in London, the South East and beyond, and most importantly, get out there and keep exploring the wonderful British art scene.